Good evening and welcome to Real Talk with Anele right here on SABC 3. The stage is yours. Today on the show, we have some local filmmakers who are causing waves, not just locally, but on the international scene as well. We'll be joined by the director and some of the cast members of Nommer, which premiered worldwide at the South by Southwest Film Festival, which happens annually in Texas. Earlier this year, it will be available in the local as well as the international screens this coming Friday. So we have to talk about it. Right now, though, we have in studio a woman who has more than one side to a genius because, on the one hand, she's a human rights lawyer who has over a decade worked extensively in the field of democratic governance, social justice, and has built up a substantial body of work and professional network both locally and globally. In 2010, however, she turned to filmmaking, and though she worked on a number of riveting documentaries, she gained international acclaim for the feature film Whispering Truth to Power, in which she spent over a year following and documenting the life of one of South Africa's most iconic women, Thuli Madonsela. Whispering Truth to Power premiered at one of the most prestigious documentary film festivals in the world and won a special jury prize at the 2018 Hot Docs Canadian International Documentary Festival. The woman behind this work of genius is Shameela Seedat. She joins us to talk about it. And I'm just worried. My team said the first thing I must ask you is, if you so happen to give us any legal advice, will you send us a bill tomorrow?
I would never send you a bill.
No, because we
ask away.
No, I'm telling you, we know this thing that you sit with a lawyer at dinner and you're just asking them questions, and then the next thing you build the next day. So we're safe, you and I here.
You know, I'm not that kind of lawyer.
All right, this is great then. Then we're free. We're scot-free. You know, we have so many people who said, oh no, I was studying law, and then I went on and I became an actress. Or I was studying law and I went on to be basically in entertainment. But it is quite something else and remarkable to not to have just studied it, but to have graduated and practiced as a human rights lawyer and then become a filmmaker.
Indeed, it was terrifying. I'd worked in a specific field for over 14 years, but at some point, just what was bubbling inside of me was the need for a personal change. So the other thing is, I've always thought there's some sort of similarity. Law and filmmaking are very different, but both law and filmmaking also rely on storytelling. Lawyers go to court and they tell stories, and so do filmmakers. But I might also say that some of my law lecturers, when they marked me badly for my law essays, they actually said, this answer resembles fiction. So I thought maybe from them there's something towards it. But if I could also be a bit serious, why I moved to filmmaking after 14 years is that I also felt at some point that with filmmaking, you could tap into emotion and you can engage in a different way. And I felt that some of my law and advocacy, you know, wasn't going to have the same impact, or I could do filmmaking in a more open-ended way where you can say things that you can't usually say within the constraints of
the law. So did you feel that, you know, in some of the cases that you worked on and in some of the injustices around the globe that you were aware of and would also get consulted on, that there wasn't enough documenting of it?
Well, I mean, usually when it comes to the law, it's about written argument. And what I've thought is that people have stories and people interact with the law, and sometimes the law is very good for them, sometimes they feel incapacitated, sometimes they can't access the law. So I think it's really nice to just have sort of everyday stories around the legal system and to have more stories, because at the end of it, you know, South Africa is so rich of stories, and I feel that, you know, I'm personally quite a curious person. So I'm a curious South African, and people at the heart and soul of the books I like to read, of the films I like to watch. So I thought, like you and like I guess lots of the viewers who are watching, let's listen, let's observe, and let's tell a story in a creative form.
Shameela, having studied, you know, you studied law and then you were also offered the Fulbright scholarship, which then sent you all the way to Columbia, and you were there. And having absolutely achieved in the highest form in terms of being on the human rights law of things, what was the end goal when you decided, okay, I've done this for 14 years, I absolutely love it, but I've got this niggling passion called filmmaking. And as you go into it, what was your end goal? Did you know that these are the kind of whispering, truth to power? Did you know that it's one of the things that you'd be embarking on?
Well, you're very kind painting me in very complimentary terms, so I'll leave it at that. The end goal was really it was just a journey of discovery. It was a lot about, testing ideas and other people's ideas and, seeing, it really is a work in process. I wouldn't say I had an end goal, but if I had to be honest, I think one of the goals was to take some of these concepts around equality, social justice, governance, because I'd been working in those beats before, and to put it into a more maybe dramatic form and entertaining form, but also form, film is about visual power. It has a lot of visual power. Sometimes you're just struck by an image and an emotion. So I thought maybe I can do a similar thing that I did in my law and advocacy work, but sort of channel it through filmmaking and have something that maybe people can still watch in 20 years' time.
So, Shameela, you touched on 3 points, inequality, governance, and social justice, right? And these 3 things is exactly what had you working with leaders across the globe. And I know earlier I was talking to you about how I was listening to an interview of yours on a New Zealand radio station. And you said something that the thing about politics and social injustice and governance is that everywhere in the world, you think they're different. You think their politicians are different, and their politics are different. But really, it's all the same. Can you unpack that for me? As a South African sitting at home watching, and I think that we're the only ones who go through problems. We're the only ones who deal, with problems with government. And you say to me, no, honey, it's the same everywhere else.
Indeed it is, and more. And one of the, I was making this film about basically an anti-corruption body.
Yeah.
So I am a bit sensitive around showing this film, especially to the rest of the world, because what do they jump on? They say, look, South Africa, corrupt. Look, black government, corrupt. So all of those were real issues that I had to confront. And I had to really sit and think, how do I portray South Africa? So it was a lot of thinking and balancing and making sure that I make a film which, although it is about corruption, it also looks at a full swathe of issues in South Africa. So it looks at the struggle for deeper equality. It looks at some of the complexities involved in fighting corruption. It looks at how corruption and inequality interact with each other. So it has a lot of things in it, apart from a mother-daughter relationship and default portrait of a woman in office and so on. But having said that, what I felt was really interesting is when I have showed this film to audiences in Canada and New Zealand, and especially Americans and Canadians, they've got up and they've said, Canada, our development corporation, our state company is implicated in some of your state capture, but more than that, look at the role of private companies all around the world, mining companies and so on. Some Americans said, Trump, well, Thuli Madonsela this woman, Thuli Madonsela, some of them had never seen her before, should spend a day with Trump and his administration and let her tell them a little bit about what conflict of interest is, because it's riddled through. So I think at this stage in world politics, countries are, for the most part, not everybody, but are quite self-reflective about their governments. This idea of these bad guys and we good is being questioned within countries itself. So I think, and people across the world are losing trust in elected representatives. And they're also looking for this strong idea, whether it's a whistleblower, a person like Thuli Madonsela, me or you, who is holding both public and private power to account. So this is something that's, I think, appealing to people worldwide.
I don't know if I'm going off topic here, but let's delve into the fact that people across the world, even in our own country, are losing faith in the elective process of finding governments. What's the alternative?
The alternative is, well, that's a difficult question.
I
That's
know.
hard talk, not real talk. But I think it's all of us. I mean, what we do have in South Africa is we've got public servants who are whistleblowers, public servants who, so it's not all government that's, tainted. above and that we've got the strong judiciary, we've got media, we've got civil society, we've got ordinary people. And South Africa is a complex, it is a dynamic country. People are always talking, people are having loud conversations. They might not always agree. And we are at this moment in, you know, a particularly difficult, but necessarily difficult time where it's out there, race, inequality. We need to address some of these issues much more deeply than we have up till this point. So I think just conversation is a gift.
You know, it was a difficult question, but you did answer it well. Any filmmaker will tell you that having a film noticed and featured locally, come on, it's a great feat. But having it premiere at one of the most prestigious documentary film festivals in the world has to be mind-blowing. And our guest today is the front row seater of such an experience. Stay with us. More on her documentary, Whispering Truth to Power.
Stole money, you still have a car, maybe you have a farm, maybe you have a house. Whatever you have, you can take it. They're saying the hospital was built as a 24-hour service, but it didn't open. There's been allegations of nepotism, corruption, irregular issuing of tenders. So we'll have to find out why. We don't make the rules, we implement them. But if those who make the rules are not in our corner, who will listen to us?
The public protector have completed their investigations into the president's home in Nkandla.
How did 206 million rand of state money get spent on one man's home?
The truth was that the president failed to meet the standard required of him.
The way she has been handling the matters, she thinks she's God. The president must not pay even a single cent.
We are in the Constitutional Court tomorrow. The president was still saying he is contesting our powers, but those are powers that we were given by the Constitution.
The remedial action taken by the public protector against President Jacob Gedlehlekisa Zuma is binding.
If there's one thing I've learned, it is that wrong things are not done by bad people.
Well, the stage has been set for a massive legal battle around the release of Thuli Madonsela's estate capture report.
The investigation relates to accusations that the Gupta family has undue influence over President Jacob Zuma and on whom he appoints to the executive.
This report has been dealt with in a very funny way. Very funny.
Why do the same mistake? We're back to the Nkandla situation again.
Thuli Madonsela has time for white people. All the time she meets white people.
These are people I once called my comrades, and these are people who once called me comrade. Well, our Constitution promises everyone an improved quality of life. Corruption erodes everything that is good. I did what I had to do, and the public protector team did what it had to do. And nothing that we did detracted from our role of protecting the public.
Woo! That, ladies and gentlemen, was the trailer of this award-winning film, Whispering Truth to Power, by our guest, Shameela Seedat. Wow, that I was actually pulled in, all right? I was totally engrossed and pulled in. What drew you to Thuli Madonsela?
What drew me to Thuli Madonsela was, well, first, I mean, there are many things. So I started filming we started the production in 2015, and our main production year was 2016. As you know, by then, Thuli Madonsela was already much in the public eye for being a person who really stood up for what she believed in. And of course, that, on a very human level, drew me to her. So I was very curious to see what is it like for a person at the helm of the Public Protector Institution. And personally, also, she seemed so sure about what she believes in and who she is. And me, I was always like questioning myself, So I thought this was an interesting person to follow. So I was drawn to making a film about you know, somebody who is seen as a game changer for public accountability. And more than that, I suspected that an institution like the Public Protector could also shine a lens on many of the other issues that we are faced with in South Africa today.
So Shameela, you know, how cognizant are you of making sure that you kind of paint the story before, you know, she was thrust into the you know, into the public as public protector? Because I mean, few people know about her contribution to the Constitution, you know, and the road to becoming the public protector. Does the film delve in that a little bit?
Well, this film is structured around Thuli Madonsela's last year in office. I wanted to be faithful to our filmmaking experience. It was an extremely difficult process to get access to Madonsela and her colleagues, so to get a meeting with her first to discuss the possibility of a film project. And then, of course, even after we did talk about it and it was a green light, the actual mechanics of filming were very difficult. And we can talk a little bit about that later if you're interested. But basically, we started filming in 2016, just when she was going to the Constitutional Court, along with other political parties around the Nkandla matter. So I have structured this film around the last year in office of Thuli Madonsela, starting with the Constitutional Court case, taking you through some of the cases that she's done. And then with her last 2-3 weeks in office, which was very tumultuous, it didn't end peacefully with a peaceful handover. There was a big legal battle, you know, around whether the state of capture report would ever see the light of day. And so this is what the viewer will experience, Thuli Madonsela in action. So I did not want to do purely an interview-driven film, because I've seen Thuli Madonsela as somebody who's interviewed many, many times for local and international TV. I've also done some interviews with her, and I've also watched interview television slots with her. And she's a public person. She's used to speaking in a specific way. So what I thought would be more interesting is if I actually made more of an observational film. So to actually watch her in action over a time period. And then within that, there would be some interviews with her, also with her brother and her kids, reflecting on her. But just by watching her in action, I'm hoping that the viewer would get a sense of who she is, watch her facial expressions, watch her in various situations with people that she's investigating, really get under her skin in that way.
Does the film cover, you know, the other cases, and not because it also, Thuli Madonsela at a point was painted as this person who's just there to be anti-Zuma, you know, and anti anyone around the Zuma, in the Zuma regime. Are you touching on the other cases that she was also investigating?
Yes, we certainly are. But so Thuli Madonsela, another thing that drew me to her is no case big enough, no case small enough. And Thuli Madonsela is very passionate that it is not just the big cases that the media goes into, but also all of, you know, she does a whole lot of other works. But as far as access goes, it's very difficult to film cases that she does because they are under wraps, they're confidential. You cannot expose the identity of people that she's investigating or people who come to her. So we were limited in terms of which cases we could actually film. So the main focus is on, Thuli became well known because of the Nkandla case, and it is also a big issue in South Africa. It's a big constitutional issue. So the film does start with that, and it tells the backstory of that. The state of capture was a really big, dramatic, important thing, and the film deals with that, and it follows her with that. Apart from that, you see what she calls Gogo Dlamini is coming to her office. You also see a case where she goes out to the northwest. She's also in taxi hearing mediation. So you get a sense of the work that she does, apart from the two big cases, as far as we were able to, but also in terms of the story and the drama and the structure. Both the cases involving Jacob Zuma were very important ones to follow.
Any feedback from her?
Any feedback from her? So I sent her the link to the film a while back, and she hasn't said anything, but I take it as a good sign, because she's the kind of person who doesn't want to be seen as interfering. I think that's partly why she let us do the film, because she believes in a transparent organization. She believes in visibility of the public protector, that it must be accessible. She's not one of those people who believe in secretive organizations, and not just her, but also her deputy public protector and her team around her, who we also chatted to and, you know, built relationships during the course of the film. So,
Shameela, thank you so much for your work. I always say that the power of who we are as a nation and the power of how strong we'll be in the future is how well we can document our stories. And this right here is an illustration of that. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, and thank you to all the viewers. I appreciate it.
Unfortunately, our time with Shameela has come to an end, but don't go away, because after the break, we talk to Nommer with the people who made it happen. And if you'd like to get your hands on one of the new Huawei P20s, they are fantastic, then pay attention to this.
Real Talk, Huawei and MTN are partnering up to celebrate the release of the new Huawei P20 series. The Huawei P20 Pro, the world's first triple Leica lens camera, is partnering with MTN, SA's fastest mobile network, to help you capture the best moments with your friends and family. We'll be capturing timeless moments and connecting with people in need, while giving you the chance to win the Huawei P20 Pro and 10 gigabytes free once-off MTN data. So tune into Real Talk for your chance to win.
And welcome back to Real Talk with Anele on SABC 3. The stage is yours. Now imagine a recent paraplegic, Randall, entrapped in his apartment with the use of a pair of binoculars given to him as a gift by his girlfriend. He witnesses a powerful criminal commit murder. His indebtedness to a sadistic loan shark sees him concocting a scheme of blackmailing the criminal in order to pay off his debt. And what follows is a thrilling ride that puts both Randall and his girlfriend's lives in mortal danger. Yeah, this, ladies and gentlemen, is the setting for the local feature film Nommer, which has had over 2 years racked up numerous awards, including Best Director, Best Script at the 2014 Silver Scarm Film Festival, as well as 7 awards at the Independent Mzansi Short Film Festival. It made history in March during the premiere at the South by Southwest International Film Festival, as it was the first ever full South African feature film and the first South African narrative film selected to show in 12 years. Joining me to give us more on this film, we have the writer and director of Nommer, Nosipho Duma. But before we do all of that, I can talk this movie up as much as I can, but you need to see a little bit about it. Just look.
Welkom thuis, babe.
Wat doen?
Aan die linkerkant. Dis hoe.
Maar gou.
Okay, check hom kyk.
Wat's dit?
Iets om vir jou te help om dit tyd te kom.
Ek sien dat nuwe brassado Warner op ongetrek.
Toe by nou se daar besloop. Hoekom?
Loya. Wie is dit? Ek weet wat jy gedoen het met my gatta. 4 mense in 'n kamer. Een is sat. Ding is, hoe hou jy die seker tussen die hande, ja? Hoeveel soek jy? 100.000.
Hy's mallig uit my bro. Hoekom was hy met so jong?
My deal is a deal. Is met kroon.
Bam! Jy het dit gedoen, Randall.
Randall. Bam. Spook is daar. No.
Ek sien.
Die blok is benauwd met my, man. Wacht net so, man. Spring ek vanaf jou mond, pepper was het, oké? Was al alright wees?
Stop it, I like it. Stop it, I like it. All right, so, you know, you watch that and then I kind of tie in something I heard you say that, you know, you've based this movie on the master of suspense. Yes. The master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock, right? Yes. What was the movie called? Room with a View?
Rear Window.
Rear Window with a View, right? So when you're watching, you know, this movie, do you feel like it is the perfect ode to the master of suspense?
I think so. I mean, I definitely, I love him so much. I love all his work, and I think I wanted to be able to show respect to what he did, but I also felt like I wanted to be real and true to what South Africa would expect of a film set in the Cape Flats.
Yeah.
And I think it was important for me that it also had something very different to what Rear Window had done. And because so many people have kind of done adaptations of this film before. And I think this is it's beyond just an adaptation. It's really inspired by it, but it's its own story completely.
But I love the fact that you highlight that this is not a movie about gangsters. We're not telling stories about gangsters here. We're telling stories about people. Can you please unpack that for me?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think what's really interesting is it's a crime thriller, so there will be criminals, you know, inadvertently. But what's really interesting for me is that it's taking a look at this world. It's really about the people who live in this block of flats. And you've got all these different characters. You've got Pam, who's this woman who gets up every day and goes to work and comes back and is trying to look after her man. And there's issues in the relationship. You've got a man who is a paraplegic who's made a lot of mistakes, and he's trying by all means, and half the time he's making all the mistakes that really get them in trouble. But he's a man trying to get himself out of a really bad situation. And then even in our look at criminals within the space, there's different types. They're not all gangsters. Our loan shark, Emmy, for example, is a different kind of criminal that you would have seen in the South African landscape, really, and especially in the Cape Flats landscape. So it was really important to me to deal with people and relationships.
You highlighted something about, you know, short films and feature films, right?
Yeah.
And you said it was a happy coincidence that you could take this from a short film and make it a feature film. Was there any fear that you would lose? Because that's the thing about, you know, short films are like an elastic, you know, the tension you can stretch it far, but it steps back and then it's done. Did you have any fear in having to adapt it to become a longer film?
There's always fear, but I think that for me, this is one of those films that felt perfect for adaptation. Because I think in the sense of a thriller, you're always trying to go, okay, cool, how much more trouble can I put the character in? And then when you think you've done enough, no, how much further, how much further?
I love it.
And I think that was my whole approach every time. It was, okay, great, so Randall's gone through this, and in the short film we did this. There's kind of a framework. But actually, he hasn't gone through enough, has he? Let's do more. Let's do more to him.
Oh my word, those movies give me such anxiety. Am I gonna have anxiety watching this movie?
I hope so.
Oh, that's what you want, right?
It's a thriller.
Where you're like sitting and you're breathing and it's broad daylight and you check if the doors are locked and then you carry on watching.
Yeah, look, I hope you have a lot of anxiety, to be honest with you. But also, I mean, if you look at what Alfred Hitchcock, what I loved about Rear Window, there's a pacing that he does so beautifully, where the film starts off and you're really investing in the characters and who they are first. Yeah. And it's slow, and the tension builds slowly, so that by the time you're feeling so anxious, it's because you care so much about the people. It's not just gimmicks that, oh, and then this happens, and then this happens. It's about people.
It's like, Randall, get out! Because you know, in the trailer, there's that Randall. I'm like, don't you call him like that. He's my friend, and I've known him for 3 minutes, but he's a great guy, okay?
He is, sometimes.
Sometimes. The film's in Afrikaans, right? And I know you said you weren't concentrating on Afrikaans when you were at school. You were too busy with sciences and everything else in the world.
Yeah.
And so, but tell me the story of you being, you know, shooting this and realizing it. For you to make it authentic, it has to be in Afrikaans.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way that we'd gotten the short film in the first place was that it was for an Afrikaans film festival. And they'd approached us because they were looking for different voices. And they said, we know you're English speaking, we know that you're not Afrikaans filmmakers, but we're really trying to open up this festival so that it's not just about the kind of stories people expect to see. So please submit something. So we did the shorts, and it was going to be an Afrikaans film, it's fine. But when it came time to make a feature film, for me, because for me and for Gambit Films, is the production company behind it, we knew that we wanted this film to be accessible to the whole world because the story is so universal. And what everyone tells you when you're trying to make a film for international is you've got to have a star, an international star, you've got to make it in English, otherwise no one's going to watch it. And we were going along on that, and then eventually I had to kind of go, right, I'm standing on location, I'm doing a location recce, I'm listening to everything around me, no one here is speaking Afrikaans. I'm meeting the cast, and as we were casting and we were working through scenes, it just sounds wrong. And at what point do we back ourselves and say story needs to win? It can't be about what other people want and what formula they think will work. And for me, it's been so gratifying to know that we did it, we stuck to our guns. This film is in Afrikaans, which is what it should be because of the subculture and the world it's set in.
Yes.
And not only are people engaging with it, but it's now sold in the States, which is where they said they wouldn't sell. And it's going to be playing in Afrikaans with subtitles, and people get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said you were approached to do the short film, right?
Yeah.
Why were you approached? What did you do so right that people approached you?
Listen, Anele, we as Gamut Films as a company, we've been at this game for a while.
Yeah.
And for a long time, we were knocking on a lot of doors and kind of waiting for our turn for someone to listen. And I think somewhere, somehow, someone heard about us and the right people kind of spoke about us, I guess. And we were called and they said, listen, we've heard about you guys. We've seen some of the other short films that you've done. We've seen some of your work and we wanna give you a shot. Please submit this. We're not saying you'll get in, but just submit an idea.
Let's see what
you have
you
one
bring.
day. You have one day. Submit an idea.
What? Jeepers, listen, I think with everything you've done thus far, this might just be good for you guys. So this Friday is a big day for you.
Yes, please.
She looks like she wants to wee herself. She said, just watch the movie. Trust me, you want to watch it. Thank you so much, Sipo. After the break, we talk to the cast members of Nommer 37. Stay with us. He's an actor and presenter. He rose to fame as a contestant on the second season of reality show Survivor South Africa in 2007. He has appeared in several television series such as When We're Black 2, an international series called Homeland. He has played the antagonist in the acclaimed local production in Four Corners, as well as the memorable Gasant. He now plays the lead role of Randall in a thriller feature film called Nommer 37. If you're not sure who I'm talking about, I'm gonna do you a favor and I'm gonna refresh your memory.
Staan so. Oh nou, dis my kroon. Sinds hy die wil hê. En Michael se ou bike. Ja, kyk hier is die wind gewaaid. Hy laat die ding dopgehou my bro man. Dit gelyk om te sien die wind change sien sy. Hy's die wil nou draai. Dis ding van Michael. En net soos die wind, het ek sens op die agter, man. Ek gaan het try to juice it.
You see, even you have to look away from yourself.
Who's that guy?
Yeah, who's that guy? Even he looked at it, he's like, yo, I hope no one is watching this.
My mother-in-law isn't watching this.
But now listen, Irshad,
Yeah.
you actually auditioned to be the bad guy in this movie.
I auditioned for the villain, as I always do. And then somehow, a couple of days before we started shooting, I can't remember, they just said, we'd like you to play the lead. And I was extremely, I appreciated what they thought of me and that I could do it. And I had to prepare, you know. But I had access to knowledge about being a paraplegic.
Your brother's...
My brother-in-law.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law is a paraplegic. He's been a paraplegic for 20 years. And so I understand what they go through. There's a depression. There's some of them even get suicidal. I spoke to some of his friends who even became suicidal. And so I had access to that kind of knowledge, which was great for me. But when we did the shorts, I had a couple of days to prepare.
Yes.
And it looks different. If you watch the shorts, you'll see it looks different. But then when we did the full feature, I mean, I watched the feature last night and I told Monique earlier, I said, Randall looks ugly, man. He looks dark and dingy and he lost weight. I started smoking for the role. I lost a little bit of weight for the role because I'm a bit of a bulky guy. And yeah, man, everybody should just go and watch this film.
So, I mean, I watch you and me and the team are going through some of the stuff that you've done. And you really do get lost in it. Okay. Which is great, Christian Bale. You know, which is great, Heath Ledger, but we know the dangers of that, Jared Leto, right? Because you could possibly not come back from it.
I think for the most part, it's a very thin line. I remember when I played Ghasant, I lost my temper with a taxi driver, and I shouted, I asked him weird questions like who was he in prison, and why did that come out of my mouth, you know? And I got shocked, and I've never been to prison. So it was my wife sitting next to me. But then, I promise you, I cannot, if I do any role, if I don't commit like that, I don't think I'll be any good. So I'd have to do those kinds of things. And it's also nice, because you learn. This is how you learn about paraplegics. This is how you learn about gangs. You know, so I love learning, you know.
What do you learn about depression and how to take yourself into a moment where you are depressed? Because like you said, you spoke to your brother-in-law and you spoke to his friends, and you know, it's a normal cycle, you know, to go through that if you're paraplegic. And so what do you learn about going into it to portray it and coming out of it?
I think depression is largely about hopelessness, isn't it?
Yes.
There's no hope for the future. Right?
Yeah.
And so if you watch this film, Randall doesn't have the time to be depressed, which is amazing. I don't know. He doesn't have the time to be depressed.
That's
you know, he can't. So he gets depressed, and he's depressed when he's there. But then all of a sudden, boom, he gets an SMS. Waar is my geld? And then all of a sudden, he's got to find a way. Otherwise, he's going to lose his life, his girlfriend's life. You know, and protecting his girlfriend is more important than being depressed. And so, that sense of hopelessness, there is a sense of hopelessness, but it's hopeless, but I've got to do something about it else, you know? So,
I think the main reason I want to watch this movie is to see how much money he owes this guy, because the way this man like trolls you and taunts you and wants, you must owe him 2 billion rand. It must be so much.
Man, I think Danny Ross did a great job. I mean, all the actors, Monique Rockman, Danny Ross, Ephraim Gordon, all of them great work. But I think just that villainousness of Danny when he plays Emmy, and also the way he was, Nosipo and the rest kind of made him look filmic in the film sense, you know. It just, the movie, you are afraid of him. You know, you get afraid of this menacing guy.
Just the way he called your name the other time, it's chilling.
Yeah, it's chilling.
That's what it is.
Spine chilling, in fact.
It's chilling. And it's very rare for South African films to be depicted in that manner, because we don't like to make people feel uncomfortable. And yet I feel like this movie does exactly that.
It's an extremely ambitious film. I don't know how many thrillers South Africa has made, but I think it's an ambitious film for South Africa, or for South Africans to make. But I also think that we've got the nod from South by South, who kind of said, listen, we'll play your film at our festival, which is already an accolade. You know? It's like a merit on its own. So I think the Gambit guys did a great job, and I'm forever grateful to Nosipo and the rest for what they've done with the film.
Yeah, I was looking.
Nosipo's amazing, isn't she?
Isn't
She's
she?
amazing.
I just want to hug her.
No, I sometimes want to fight with her. We fight a lot. But I mean, we're friends. But she's what I like about Nosipo is she comes across as extremely feisty, and like there's something, but there's a sensitivity to her that she hides. And an actor like an actor like myself, like she would whisper in my ear and tell me things, and kind of, I always say this, prime me for the scene, which is exactly what I want for a scene. I don't want anybody belting notes across the floor. I want you to sit there, prime me, speak to me in my ear, and kind of let's you and me have a conversation. Then I'm set. Now I'm set. Now I'm ready.
That's actually one of the most fascinating things I've heard any actor anyway say about their director. Ever.
She's amazing.
I wish people would say that about me. You know, Anele just comes and she whispers in my ear, and then I'm brilliant. But no one does. The short film version of this feature has achieved the highest South African accolade in the form of the 2016 SAFTA for the best short film. Nommer has been received so well, both locally and abroad, as we're just speaking about with Irshad. After the break, Monique Rockman will join Irshad on the couch, and we'll talk more about this fantastic movie, which is out on the 1st of June. I'll remind you again before we say goodbye. Speaking of reminding you, here's your chance. You need to win that Huawei, remember? Here's how you can get your hands on one of the brand new Huawei P20s.
Real Talk, Huawei and MTN are partnering up to celebrate the release of the new Huawei P20 series. The Huawei P20 Pro, the world's first triple Leica lens camera, is partnering with MTN, SA's fastest mobile network, to help you capture the best moments with your friends and family. We'll be capturing timeless moments and connecting with people in need, while giving you the chance to win the Huawei P20 Pro and 10 gigabytes free once-off MTN data. So tune into Real Talk for your chance to win.
Welcome back. You with Real Talk with Anele on SABC 3. Nommer is one of only 44 films by first-time filmmakers that were included from 8,160 submissions from across the world in the South by West Film Festival. It explores important themes that confront us as a South African society, including greed, depression, doubt and corruption with the law enforcement and us as people. It resonates with a raw freshness, immediacy, and almost mythic sense of reclamation as well as redemption. We're now joined by Monique Rockman, who plays Pam. Monique, welcome to the show. Now, you from theatre, right?
Yes.
So this is your first time going to the film side?
Yes, this is my debut.
Ooh, scary. So didn't you feel like you had to double catch up in terms of the fact that, you know, you were in theatre and this is your first time doing film, and then also you weren't in the short film, you just came straight into the feature film?
Yeah, I definitely felt like I had to show up because also these amazing actors I had to play with Irshad and with Danny Ross, and it was intimidating, but I was like, this is what I've always wanted to do. So when I stepped onto set, I'm like, this is what you got to do, and I showed up.
You showed up. Good. This is why it went to, you know, is it South by Southwest?
South by Southwest. You said South by West, but it's fine. But it's South by Southwest.
I know. As I said it, I'm like,
He's a corrector.
You know, in the real world, the director would yell, cut now, and not do it again. Yeah. So how do you adapt your acting style from theatre to film? I understand a little bit about it that, you know, in film, it's all in your face, and theatre, it's your entire body. You know, am I right in assuming that?
Yeah, I feel like, well, it is. In film, it's more real. It's more from the inside. That with theatre, it's much bigger. So I had to really get smaller. And that was always like, Nosipa would come to me, she's like, that was great. Smaller. Yeah, so but then I relaxed into it more, and I just started like, I'm talking to you, and it was nice that I didn't have to project, and people is like, project, I can't hear you from the back. Like, you know, it was nice to just be able to talk and to forget about the camera at the end of the day, because I played with this guy and I know him for very long.
Yeah.
And Dosipo was amazing in guiding me. I always felt safe. I never felt stupid on set or like I don't belong there. I just felt like this is where I'm supposed to be.
So there are no wrong takes. We can only just do them better.
Yeah, I don't feel like she would ever let me go on if it wasn't a nice take. She's a perfectionist.
I absolutely love that. What's the pressure with making sure we do well on Friday?
Man, I think it's pressure for South Africans at large. I think South Africans have to support South African film. You know, we need to make sure that our narrative does well so that there can be more of them. Because if I put on the TV and I see something like Avengers and Galaxy Warriors, whatever that is, that upsets me, you know. And I think our movies need to be advertised as often. And then also our stories need to be integrated. Because I mean, how do you create a national identity without story? You know, your guest earlier spoke about how there's an emotion attached to art and film, and you could move minds and hearts. You know, this is not something academic. This is something from the heart, film, you know. So, and you could move people. You could create a nation with story. And I think our story should integrate. I want to make a story with I mean, this is Zulu girl that wrote an Afrikaans story. There's already. You know, we're on the right track. We're on the right track. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Okay, so I want to make you earn your pay here. Monique, your face, the camera's hitting a close-up of you. I'm going to read your scenario, and I want your face to react. You know, so you must act like you're in the situation. Monique, it's Friday, and you are in Afghanistan in the toilet. You've lost your passport, your wallet, and all your transfers have left you, but you finally managed to get through to the embassy. A spider lands on your neck. And as you scream, your phone drops into the toilet. And you were talking to somebody who was going to give you details of safety. The embassy is now closed and your phone is 15 minutes away.
I'm dead.
Monique left us. Irshad, I'm coming to you. Close up on Irshad, please.
Oh, goodness, man.
You are on the train pretending to listen to music because you don't want to be disturbed. You hear a familiar voice 2 seats behind you, and it's your girlfriend's best friend. You hear her say, "What? You're pregnant? Did you tell Irshad?" Oh, but did you tell the other guy you were with last night?
Does Irshad's wife know? Does Irshad's wife know? I mean, does Irshad's wife know? Like Jews. Yeah?
You can't bring your narrative into my game, Irshad. You can't.
Sorry.
That's not fair. That's
I started
not fair.
living that right there.
All right, listen, good luck for Friday. Monique, welcome to Feature Films. I'm pretty sure you do your thing entirely in theatre, but it is lovely to have such a spark like you in film. We'll make sure to go out and watch. Irshad, truer words have never been spoken. It is our job to support our movies.
Yeah.
And I sincerely hope that my viewers, at least, will go and do that for us on Friday.
I'm pretty sure they will.
All righty then. Well, you've heard it for yourselves, and the good news is that Nommer 37, and that's the last time I say that today. Thank you, Jesus. We'll be showing at cinemas here in South Africa this Friday, the 1st of June. We've come to the end of the show. Thank you so much to all my guests. Shameela, Seedat, who joined us earlier. Nosipo Dumisa, who is a firecracker for director. Irshad Ali, as well as Monique Rockman for coming through. From me and the rest of the team, it's a good night. Isitingo's up next. Ciao, ciao.